Good evening from Lagos, Nigeria. You're welcome to the Future of Work Summit 2020 final session. It's just been amazing from day 1, 2, and 3, and this is the final session. As you're coming in, please just let us know what city you're in, and also write down something that has stood out for you so far in this summit. Just let's do that. And you're welcome. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join us, and then we kick off. Today is going to be, this session is going to be off the roof because we have a pillar, we have a powerhouse with us this evening, and you don't want to miss it. So please reach out to your friends to make it quickly to the chat room for this very life-changing session. While we do that, I'll share a bit about the summit. I'm sure we know about the Steering for Greatness Foundation. The Steering for Greatness Foundation is a foundation that is focused on, pushing inclusive education for teenagers. So education that is not taught in the classroom, and channeling them to be the leaders that we require, all over the world. And we have seen so many results from that, from teenagers that have attended or have been part of the foundation's work over the years. So I'm looking forward to seeing your chats. I'm looking forward to hearing how, where you are chatting from. I'm looking forward to see that. So let's see. I see Benga Benga is in the chat room. That's fantastic. Okay, have some attendees. Great. Please reach out to your friends so that we're going to kick off in a bit. Okay. So a bit about Steering for Greatness again. Steering for Greatness is a foundation that has a mission to create a system that inspires, teaches, nurtures, empowers teenagers towards establishing the right leadership and initiating positive and social change. To be a part of what we're doing, please follow us on our social media handles. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram. On Twitter, we are on at Steer to Greatness. That's Steer, STEER to Greatness. Facebook, we are on Steering for Greatness Foundation. Instagram, we are on at Steering for Greatness. And LinkedIn, we are on Steering for Greatness Foundation. Now, over to the topic of today. Today has started off with a blast with Mr. Dari, and I hope you really enjoyed that session. Wow, our participants are increasing. I hope you really enjoyed that session. This evening, when I say evening, I'm joining in from Lagos, Nigeria, so it's about 6:05 p.m. In this side of the continent. The topic for this session is inclusion and the future of work. Inclusion and the future of work. And this is a very interesting topic because the world as we know it is changing, and we need to ask ourselves, how do we remain relevant? As the world is changing, one of the things the pandemic has brought, to us is that life will not be the normal we're used to knowing it, as. And so we have to be able to start empowering ourselves to remain relevant. How would work be in the future? The future has already started as far as I'm concerned. And to discuss that topic with us today, we have a powerhouse in our midst, Dr. Fatima Lawson. And I'm going to say a bit about Dr. Fatima. Dr. Fatima Lawson is a strong advocate for children and education, especially the education of women and girls, and is passionate about social justice. She holds a BA degree in French, Portuguese, an MA in linguistics, a master's in administration in education and administration, a PhD in educational policy and administration. In addition, she holds the license in teaching and administration up to the superintendent's level. She also completed a national mentoring certificate for principals in 2010. Working in both private and public educational settings, she has taught in all levels of schooling, college, secondary, and elementary schools. She was also a research fellow in both Canada and the United States. I have some other interesting things about Dr. Fatima. I went snooping around to find very interesting things about Dr. Fatima. And guys, you would not believe it. Like Dr. Fatima has, she's literally those kind of people that their profile is an entire hall of fame. There are a lot of things I can read out here, but one thing that I found was Dr. Fatima was elected to join the planning council, the government's planning council, governor's planning council for the Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday by the governor of Minnesota. And she had a 3-month tenure to plan that. And for her to have been singled out to join government, such a prestigious council, you have to have an idea of who we're talking about. This is a woman that has won several awards, starting from, there's one particular award I love, Manchester's Who is Who in Women's Leadership Lifetime Membership Award, Wise Owl Award for distinguished staff members. She has won the Minnesota School of Excellence Principals Award in 2009. Year upon year, Dr. Fatima keeps breaking, the limits. And I would say, guys, it's such an honor to be under her, session today. And so I have my notes ready. I'm ready to dig in and, get so much knowledge from her. And first of all, while I bring Dr. Fatima up, I want to ask her a very important, a very, a very pressing question. Dr. Fatima, welcome. And you're welcome. Welcome to this session of the Future of Work Summit, the final session. And they say they save the best for the last.
I got so much pressure.
So powerful, Dr. Fatima. So I want to ask, when I saw the news on how you were elected, by the governor to join the Martin Luther King Planning Council. By nature, I love planning, so I'm into planning, events and all that. So, what was that experience like for you? In just 1 or 2 minutes, what was that experience like for you? What was the goal? What did you achieve? Just if you can give us an idea of the gist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, I also serve on the Governor's Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage. And then usually they will look to, having a well-rounded representation in those kinds of forums. So I was really honored when the executive director of the council called me and asked whether I would want to represent the council on that committee. I did. And it was an eye-opening experience because, we have people from different walks of life, and some of the things they shared. I have been on the council for like 8 years. I didn't even know what's happening among our people, meaning, people of African heritage. And it was humbling. And I work with the commissioner, for human rights, amazing woman, the Commissioner Lucero. And she very respectfully, listened and took advice and also pointers from those of us who participated. I happen to have a young lady who worked for us in St. Paul Public School with a beautiful voice. So that was one of the best experiences. I recommended her to be the opener of singing the Black National Anthem. My God, did she do well? I mean, we had a whole part, the odd way, that was just before COVID, that was in January. So we were able to fill the odd way, and she took it and ran with it. I was so proud of her, because this is how we promote our own.
Yes.
Instead of just looking for talents outside, we do have them within if we're definitely looking for, and if we're waiting, if we're willing to wait and nurture. If we think the talent is somewhere there lurking, but not up to par, then it's up to us to nurture. I don't want to start preaching.
Okay, yeah.
That's what happened, and that experience was humbling too. Because so many people came with a lot more than I probably could have given.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. So before we become all yours, I like to ask this question, because the students always have their expectations. They all have their expectations. What is your expectation for this session?
Well, my expectation at the end of this session is that people would really reflect. I asked a lot of questions, and that's how I think, was it Dr. Guajardo? She said, Maria, she said, you have to ask, a good leader asks a lot of questions, and you provide the resources. So what I'm going to do is to take us on a journey of reflection. Okay. And hopefully people will come along with me. The first few slides will be asking, think about this, keep it within you. Then later, there will be time for you to process it. So it is very important for us to participate, and I would look forward to questions. I also look forward to comments. And if there are any things or gaps or, in the presentation, of course, nobody's perfect. Let me know, because I have taken this from a practitioner as well as an educator point of view. I had to take off my hat of an educator and look at the workforce. And it so happens that I belong to what they call the Minnesota Africa United. This is a new organization that's trying to get Africans in Minnesota to be united and to find, a path forward for all of us, including our kids coming behind us. And I'm honored to say that they just made me the chair of the workforce committee. So this really came in my alley, really. When I was told to talk about it, I thought I would talk about the same old thing, education only, not workforce. But of course, we prepare the workforce. So I am just so honored to be here. I know that you would have had so many other people who could do it based on the caliber of presenters that I've seen before me. But you know what? We are here to learn together, to reflect together, and also hopefully I'll be calling to action to think about what we need to do after this. It's not just sitting here and listening, but it's also thinking about what we need to do to make our future and our students and our youth's life much better than ours. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maria. So guys, you're listening, we're about to take it off. I am your moderator for this session. My name is Echika Obijiaku. And if you have questions as Dr. Maria is taking us through her
Fatima, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Dr. Fatima is taking the presentation. Please put the questions in the Q&A box. And just so that we build up after Dr. Fatima's presentation, we're actually going to start taking questions. So Dr. Fatima, we're all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. May I share my screen, please? Because another thing is that there are visual learners among us, there are auditory learners. So I want both, or even the kinesthetic to have a space in this presentation. So if you don't mind, I would share my screen and then take it from there.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Great. Dr. Fatima, your screen.
Okay. Great. So as you know, this is actually going to talk about the future of work. And I'd like it to be interactive if you don't mind. First of all, your name. Of course, if you are using the chat, it's going to show. So what motivates you to participate in this summit? What comes to mind when you hear the words future of work and inclusion? So share one aspect of preparing tomorrow's workforce that seems challenging to you. I know some of us are already preparing tomorrow's workforce. We are teaching, we are learning, or even as a learner, as you're getting ready for the workforce to launch into that, what are those things that are challenging to you? And I know that Ms. Echika will help read some of those responses and chats.
So guys, let's make this as interactive as possible.
I know.
Let's send in, as Dr. Fatima is asking, let's respond with our answers. Okay.
I know I'm on a time limit, and sorry for the wait time that is going to be shortened. So think about what you've said, and then let's look at the future of work. What does it really mean? I usually like to benchmark. Somebody mentioned Peter Senge. He talked about benchmarking too. As great leaders, researchers, teachers, we want to know what others have said about a topic that we're talking about. So the best that I found was by Deloitte. This is a reputable market research firm here in Minnesota. And what did they say about the future of work? They said it explores the changes, micro changes, that could be in store for the workplace, the workforce, and the nature of work itself in the future. Think about that. Do you agree with this? It's a rhetorical question anyway. Now, we're going to look at the how, the who, and the what of the future of work. Anything we do, let's think in terms of how, who, and what. These things give us purpose in our lives and in our actions. So As Deloitte said, there will definitely be changes. How will the workplace, the workforce, and the nature of work really look like? And future could be tomorrow. It's just not today, right? And then somebody said earlier that we already kind of know, the future is here, which is true. Who are the agents of the future workforce? Is it the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the Gen Zers? I'm making up those words. What skills do we need to fully prepare them for the challenges ahead? Remember, I asked you to think about challenges, and I'm sure we'll have them. So what are the implications for our African youth? Hopefully, by the time we're done with this presentation, we are going to address some of these things. So you have to listen carefully, because some of them are not like, boom, open. Again, it sends you into a reflective mode. So you would probably have a different interpretation, which is why I'm open-minded. I throw out those questions. I provide a few guidance. And of course, you can fill in the blanks. So the implication, in order for us to analyze or speculate on the prediction by Deloitte, which says there will be changes, right? We have to, first of all, examine where we were. Where are we coming from? And where we currently are. And then, of course, where we're going. How does the current structure shape the future of work for us? We cannot talk about the future, I believe, if we don't look at the current and then the past, right? So how do those come together to shape what we're going to see tomorrow, as early as tomorrow? So now let's look at some of those aspects of the early structure. Most jobs were entry level, if you recall. For those of you who are at least, let's say, 40. And they are often considered a rite of passage for a long-lasting, stable career at an organization. An example, I am a proud alumni of the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University. And in our department, Modern European Language Department, all graduates, as soon as they graduated, they were guaranteed a job in foreign service. They sent them all over the world. And some of them actually stayed in those jobs and rose through the ranks, became ambassadors or whatever, and then came back home and probably became ministers. They were very much, settled in their ways, right? This is your path of, your rite of passage. You did this, this is where you go. So by the time I came along, or my group came along, those opportunities were almost non-existent. The careers in foreign service were kind of eroding for reasons best known to us as a country. And then before you know it, some of us after our NYSC, we were looking for teaching jobs at the university. So I was lucky to be called back by the University of Ife to be, of course, an assistant lecturer, because if you don't have a PhD, of course, in those days, I don't know how it is now, you would not get that. And then after that, you will grow within that position. So they mark the turning point from adolescence for us to adulthood, and a time to experience firsthand how the business world actually works, while putting in necessary time and moving from the bottom of the corporate ladder up to the top. And at the same time, you're gaining professional skills, right? You go in as a let's say as an apprentice, if at all, just to make it basic. And then you work your way up, maybe you do some on-the-job training. I have heard people nowadays say, we don't have time for on-the-job training, come with your skills. But in those days, you really were prepared. You moved from A to B to C, and so on and so forth. And the work environment, listen to that, we're talking about inclusiveness now, was relatively homogeneous in both age and ethnicity. In the case of Nigeria, I know this is, Africa looking at it globally, but Nigeria, we have our tribal, preferences, so to speak, and sometimes when you go to an office, everybody speaks the same language, they're from the same place. And then you go to the north, the same thing, east, the same thing, west, the same thing. So in those days, that's what it was in our early structure. And there was nothing wrong with it at that time. Nobody complained. Nobody said, oh my gosh, you discriminated against me, you didn't give me the job because I'm Hausa, or I'm Yoruba, or I'm Igbo, just to mention a few. And then times now have changed. So we're moving to the current now, right? The corporate ladders have shortened, in case you are not, in case you don't know. Career path options seem to have ballooned. There are just so many things. It's not uncommon. Like, I believe Miss Adejana, she graduated with a degree in physiology, I think. But what she's doing today is totally different. But is she wasted by doing physiology? Absolutely not. So now we're looking at a conglomeration of skills and disciplines. Entry into the workforce is frequently delayed now, and entry-level workers often leave an organization after a couple of years on the job. And I could see it with some of my students. I also teach college or university, as they call it, back home. Some of these jobs are just a passing. They are not a career path, but they are just what they call, hit and run, or sometimes hit and miss opportunities to get into the workforce. Some people will say it's a resume builder. Okay, so think about the mentality. So what are these changing structures? All of these changes now compel us to take a closer look at whether our entry-level roles are designed to withstand the forces shaping the future of work or not. Are we ready? Today, many entry-level workers find themselves being asked to perform tasks that are way beyond their skill level. An example is, with distance learning. A lot of our teachers didn't have degrees in technology, right? There are elementary teachers, generalists, there are secondary teachers who are subject, specific, but not technology. Now they have to. Over the last 3 months, they've been teaching from home. So how did we prepare them? Or did we? Again, talking about our current reality, are you seeing a shift in paradigm? Is there a shift coming in the horizon as we're talking about the future? These workers we're talking about currently, they have to grapple with data, they perform research, they call them multitaskers. There is one image that I skipped at the beginning because I was going to have people look at it and talk about, maybe I should bring it up, and talk about, what they think or what they see as the future of work. That was my preamble, my reflection piece. When you look at it, what are the themes that come to mind? Is this the future? If it is, are we preparing our youth for this future? You can see the overload that this particular individual is taking. So that is I think, the essence of this image. So as I was saying, as they are grappling, in many cases today, ladies and gentlemen, the university degree is now a basic requirement to qualify for even the most menial jobs. And I believe that is the same back home in Africa. I'm talking from both, the American and the African perspective, because we have a lot of our students who come here, study, and then go back home. What mentality, what mindset, what preparation do we give them to be able to function successfully wherever they go? Some of these experiences are really a little bit, I would say, truncated by the preparation that we give our students now. So these shifts in the work and expectations, along with economic recessions, there are so many happening. With the pandemic, it is kind of almost imminent that we will go through that. So these shifts seem to have begun to have significant impact on the workforce, the workplace, and the demands on those who are responsible for preparing the future of workers. Also, increasingly sophisticated value chains have caused the nature of work to shift from relatively routine work to ones that are filled with diversity and complexity. So what is next for us? We know all these things now. How can organizations evolve from the entry-level role experiences to harness the best future workers and sustain performance over time? With a new generation poised to enter the workforce, organizations are simultaneously forced to combat two converging values. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is really the generations that we have that are most prevalent. I mean, the baby boomers, our time is kind of going. But what about, the millennials? What have they done? What have they brought to the workforce? What about the Gen Xers? So first, the Generation Z, consisting of those born after 1995, which is one thing that really made me happy with this summit, because I saw a lot of young minds. I came into this thinking, oh, where are we going? But now I kind of have a feeling that we are on the right path, if only we took the right steps. And yeah, you could take the wrong step even on the right path, right? While Gen Z is anticipated to bring an unprecedented level of technology skills to the workforce, which is true, most seem to lack solid interpersonal communication skills, or what they call the soft skills. Now they call them power skills. That's a new lingo. You know, the language is dynamic, of course. And these skills are very, very important in order for them to succeed in an increasingly inclusive work environment. So think about it. It's not enough to know the computer. It's not enough to take it apart and then put it together. I want to remind us of the story of the Unabomber, Theodore Szynski, who is in jail. He was extremely brilliant. You know, he went to all the high-end schools that you can think of, Harvard graduated, etc., but could not get along with his fellow man. No matter what skills you have to have those power skills. We'll talk about it. Are we preparing students for that? If you're a math major, did all your courses just center around math? Even as a medical doctor, you know, student, did you take some of those culturally, I would say, relevant classes? Because as a medical doctor, for example, because most of our parents, when you ask them, or the kids, what do you want to be? Medical doctor, engineer, lawyer. I see there's nothing else outside of those disciplines. But how are you preparing yourself for those? Let's ask ourselves those questions. The drivers, again, we've talked about the Gen X's. Further apprehension about generation gap that this creates in the workforce, you know, compels us as educators, as trainers, colleges, universities, to take a closer look at whether these technical shifts are designed to withstand the forces shaping the future of work. We have these colliding trends. One generation coming in and debunking the other. The growing use of automated technologies. A new generation entering the workforce. They're creating an opportunity for organizations, of course, to re-examine the way that they are preparing future leaders. All the shifts that we're having in the workforce, in the generations. First of all, we started with baby boomers. Every 5 or so years, we seem to have a new generation of people coming into the workforce. The persistent skill gap that this creates causes us to think, and it has a cause for alarm at the same time. It is also an opportunity for us to reflect. As we're being faced with these challenges all the time, how are we dealing with those challenges? Are we stressed out? Are we running to therapists because we can't handle it? Let's sit down and let us reflect a little bit more. So you already know that the generation entering the workforce often prompts comparison, right, with those before. And along with much anticipation, there are also predictions as to this generation coming in will bring a new set of skills and what will happen to the one that we've already acquired from the generation leaving. Sometimes I would say guesses, if you like, or predictions are accurate, and sometimes they're not. So when you look at it, we look at it as a disruption in the workforce. As new people, I remember when we had the Facebook and everything, I was very hesitant to get into it. And oh, that's for young people. But now I'm living in that world. Will I shut myself down? If I do, then I will not relate. And relationship is key. That's why we need to build those soft skills or power skills. Millennials, for example, are looking at their work habits now so that we can prepare them, the future ones, better. They were projected to introduce new forms of communication and prioritize social responsibility for their employers, right? Millennials were the ones, thanks to them, we have social media. That is one time that we as humans could communicate with anybody all over the world without even having physical contact. Age of somebody talked about it earlier, you know, of the cell phones, you know, Snapchats, you name it. This group of people brought that to us. Twitter, all this came with this particular generation. But there's something wrong too. The average lifespan of the millennial in an organization is 2 years. Boom, 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 boom. I could see my own millennials. One of them is on the third job in 2 years. As somebody who hires, I look at, I used to, because I need to change my paradigm, right? My mindset. It's like, okay, why are you moving from job to job? There must be something wrong with you. And the answer will be, I'm looking for better opportunities for growth. I'm looking to renew myself. They are easily bored. Don't give them the same old. You will not keep them. So does that have any implication on the future of work? I don't want to say yes or no. I said maybe. Just think about it. Now, let's go back to the future. Now that we have examined the nature of the two major players in future workforce trends, the growing adoption of artificial intelligence in the workplace and the expansion of the workforce to include both on and off balance sheet talent. The on and off balance sheet talent are those things that are irreplaceable right now. I'm talking about now and maybe the nearest future. We found out, if the pandemic did not teach us anything, we outsourced a lot of work. We wanted to grow Silicon Valley. Oh, technology. And then when the pandemic came, the economy collapsed. Who are the people who withstood the test of the pandemic? They are what we call the essential workers. Those who were charged with growing our foods, with taking care of the sick, those who are actually, in what we call the necessary professions that have human interaction as the core of it. This got me thinking, because there was a time that we're all outsourcing. Yeah, this job is too small for me, it's too little. Oh, our people are into, the high sounding titles. So now it's time for us to reflect and then come back to the future. We need to look at the shifting workplace also. The culture for inclusion and transparency as another trend. Inclusion also, I would say includes taking the students to the workforce. That's what they call, in fact, they just invited me to be on their board. We call it the best prep. They have they have all these workforce opportunities. They have, this year they moved everything to online. They have a workshop and they have internship for students where they go in the place of work. And a lot of what they do there is not disjointed from the classwork. They get credits, and those credits are very valuable because they are practical. They see, they feel, and they do. So that is an inclusive, in my opinion, place of work. Plus the ability to get along with others. It is imperative that we have an inclusive model where we strike a balance between artificial intelligence, things that normally humans used to do, and what we could call a balance sheet, talent, and skills. Those are very critical. A balance between those two maybe will prepare us better for a future workforce that is enduring. A combination of two will not be a bad deal for those who are charged with preparing future generations of workers. Another thing is that it is time for us also to take a deep breath. We are breathing too fast. We're moving too fast, faster than our legs will carry us. And let us examine the colluding trends, the growing use of automated technologies that are, happening in our communities, and how we're preparing our African youth with skills that would enable them to compete on an equal footing. We want to prepare them not just to work in Zimbabwe, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, etc., but to work anywhere in the world. The world is their stage, and nobody should tell them otherwise. They can compete on an equal footing. Be it in Singapore, be it in Norway, or wherever you look at. And then, by the way, look at some of those countries. Who are the movers and shakers? In the United States, I'll tell you, you've probably seen the statistics. A lot of Nigerians, talk about the brain drain. Nigerians are making this country great. Why can't it also be for Africans? Okay? So we have to look at how these skills interplay with the new generation entering the workforce. It is a very critical thing, especially in our growing but shrinking world. when this pandemic happened, you know, this is really foremost in my mind and in the minds of everybody. When it happened, I remember hearing first about it in, I believe, February. I went to a Senate district meeting. I'm one of the directors of our Senate district committee. We were meeting and they said, oh, there's this thing that's really killing people back in China. A lot of us thought, oh, that's China. It's not going to come here. Boy, were we wrong. Our world is small. It is shrinking. Just as Thomas Friedman says, say the world is flat. It is. When it's flat, you can travel faster, right? Easier than when it's curved. Although geographically it's curved, but socially it's flat. So we have to start thinking about how we're preparing our youth for that. Now, we have talked about all these things. We know that we have the desire. That's why we have Steering for Greatness looking at this. And I applaud them for that. But there are some barriers facing especially our African community. And what I'm going to talk about, you know, may apply to maybe of the 52 countries, maybe let's say half of them. But I will be remiss if I do not mention all this, because before I put this together, I went and checked and you know, to see what the major barriers are. Why are we not preparing our youth for the future? I mean, we are preparing them, but not for a solid future. We have the problem of access and opportunity. Everything seems to be a privilege in our countries. Even what is a right turns to be a privilege, and only the children of the who is who sometimes gain access to a lot of things. I look at our elementary schools. That's where it starts. What are we giving them? How are we exposing them to career options? Right here in the United States now, in St. Paul Public School where I work, we do have what they call the personal planning, education planning forms that students fill, and then we work with them through that. We have counselors in schools who are giving career preparation for them right from elementary school. How about our infrastructure? Those are barriers as well. Our roads are not conducive, our schools. I mean, it's disheartening when you see the state of some of the buildings that I used to know. When I went back the last time, visited some schools, I was in tears. How about handicap accessibility? Do we have those things? I was watching, somebody actually sent through WhatsApp, a young Ghanaian artist, no hands. I don't know whether some of you know that. Totally armless, producing some amazing work of art that could compete with the Picassos of the world. And then we saw the struggle of this particular young man getting on the bus. The taxi. Fortunately, he has a taxi driver who has a heart, who will pick him up and take him to the marketplace where he could probably, sell his wares. What are we doing? If I could see it, I bet you millions of the soil have we reached out to him. Because that is a talent that we do not want to waste. So this, and then when you have a disability, you are seen as a pariah to society. We as educators, preparers of the future workforce, please let us start thinking about an inclusive environment, because that includes everybody. Nobody is out. Inclusive means everybody in, nobody out. Skilled workers. Yeah. I remember, people used to look at people like the electricians, the plumbers, as people who are not educated. Now, of course, you need a 2-year degree in the United States to be able to be successful for, I would say, plumber. But the most important thing is that we have to also start tapping into those, I would say, skills that are very, very unique that every individual brings in. And how do we know? I will tell you later. How about electronic commerce? That's what is taking the day today. There are some organizations that would have shut down completely. They are the ones thriving through this pandemic because they know how to switch their commerce to electronic means where you don't need to leave your home to patronize them. Are we thinking about that for all the youth? Telecommunication, along with that comes the availability of light. I really felt so bad for my predecessor, Mr. Akinaja, when he was presenting twice or so, due to no fault of his, circumstances beyond his control. I believe NEPA did it again. But fortunately, he was able to regroup and come back. Imagine if we did not have those kinds of interruptions. Telecommunication is great now. I was looking to send money, we always send money via Western Union. And somebody told me about what they call, well, I'm not here advertising any particular, but I'm just impressed that there is an organization, they call them SendWave. And, you can just send money within seconds, it gets to your families back home. And it is why I'm so happy about it is that it's a Nigerian-owned business, but it's based in Kenya. So we have Africans managing this. We need to patronize one another. If we do not, we don't have to think everything foreign is better. We want to be organic, we want to be authentic. And in order to do that, we need to grow our own. I hope I'm not taking too much time. Another thing is the legal and political regulations. I know that we're a democratic organization, country, and most of us in Africa are. We gained our independence, etc., from 58 all the way to the present. But we have so many barriers brought forth by the system. I'm not blaming any particular person, but the system and then the political regulation. You can do this, you can't do that. Oh, only these people have the right to do this. No. Free the mind. Free our children. Our future depends on them. How about the lack of training and job readiness? This is where inclusion comes in. I noticed that, when I was doing a lot of reading, the apprenticeship in Nigeria has to be revamped. When you have an apprentice who will pay his masters money that he doesn't have in order to get trained, and then he's subjected to long hours, no break, nothing. By the time that apprentice finishes, he probably doesn't have any gusto to do the work. So we have to think about this. It has to come from the institutions and come from the educators who are preparing them. It is important. There's value added when people have some hands-on experiences with work. And then paid internship is another thing. We need to pay them. My goodness, you want them to go to Lekki from, I'm just making these examples, let's say from Oshodi. Go all the way to Lekki, no money, nothing, and maybe this particular talented apprentice wants to, the heart, the desire is there, but there's no means. And these are organizations that can pay for these, future workers to work there, because what they're doing is not irrelevant. It's not useless. In fact, what they're doing pays, and what they're doing is work that they would have paid somebody to do. So why not give them a stipend? A stipend is different. Think about it. Another thing that is a barrier, I didn't even know this existed, because when I was coming up, it existed. Tracking. Tracking is actually the formation of a conducting path. I remember I didn't know how to type. I type fast now, but not the proper way. Because they are like, oh, okay, you are kind of quote unquote brilliant or smart, if you like. So, typing is not for you. We track people. You go on this path and you go on the other path. You are a lady, you are a secretary. You are a guy, you are an engineer. Those things have to stop. That is archaic. What did Mr. Akina just say? He said that our curriculum is archaic and museum bound. That was one of the, expressions that he used. And I like that expression because I was thinking along the same lines. The absence of learner's voice. Now, this is the latest trend. Are you asking them how they want to learn? Are you giving them options or choices? If you do those things, you will prepare a better future of work and a better workforce. Those are very critical skills that we need to make sure that our students are getting and our youth are understanding that sometimes when you make a choice, it is your choice, you own it. You have buy-in and you do the very best that you can to make sure that you do not disappoint people who gave you the chance. And, I'll say the opportunity and the privilege to choose. Okay. Now, we've talked about those skills. We've talked about the technological know-how. We've talked about the balance sheet skills. We've talked about so many things that are the barriers. So what would be the ties that bind us two so that we can meet, we can have a middle ground? Having a middle ground means a lot to us in this day and age. Remember, we need to strike a balance. So if we're striking a balance, where do they come together? That's the ties that I'm talking about here. The first one is the personal empowerment. Give these students the audacity to believe that they can do it no matter what. The personal conviction that they have the power to make changes and not blame or depend on the government. The other one is grassroots economics, having that entrepreneurial spirit that the speaker yesterday talked about, the spirit to venture even with nothing. The Steve Jobs of the world, the Bill Gates of the world, the Mike Zucker of the world. Do you know how they started? Most of them in their basement. Nothing, no capital. If they could do it, then our youth could do it. They have the means, they have the brains. When I say means, they have the capacity. They have the will, and they have the capacity. It's just some of those skills that probably we need to work on. We're also looking at the smart networking. To me, a lot of us are like, okay, I'm a parent, I want to introduce you to this governor or to this because I want you to have a start in life. Is that networking? You need to expand your horizons. You network smart with people who add on to, not remove from. Because once you are there with your hands open and stretched, you are begging. And you are at that person's beck and call, you would not think for yourself, but somebody will make you think for themselves, for them. So it's important for you to continue to connect. Fortunately, these days, ladies and gentlemen, we have better means of connecting. We have a whole lot more options than others before us had. The Gen Z are I have a lot of hope, and we know where we need to go, right? Because my presentation, I said, yes, they have these skills, but there are certain things we need to work on. I wouldn't say anybody's lacking in anything, because it's only the mind that shapes what you can or cannot do. The health insecurities. Yes. Most African countries might have universal health care. Most African countries might, say, I have a headache, I need to go to the doctor. But those things are not like given anymore. And some of us who are getting into the health, I would say, professions, we have to start looking at the things that do not make us succeed, because we have a lot of people in these health professions here in the United States, as well as other parts of the world, even back home in Nigeria. I was just reading the other day in Kano, my hometown, that 60, my niece, she didn't permit me, but here I feel good talking about her. She is ill and she was scheduled to have surgery, and she went there, waited for almost 8 hours before they told her, oh, sorry, we could not find the anesthesiologist. They were, I was livid because we were here praying and waiting for good news, right? And to this day, that was 3 weeks ago, it hasn't happened. Then the other day, we were told that 60 of our medical doctors disappeared from the hospital. And then you saw what happened to the Emir of Borno, who died. His son took him. Well, anyway, I don't want to go into that. But the main thing is that we have to be very careful. We are raising, future workers who have a heart, who are empathetic towards, because everything ties together. So we have to be very, very careful that we are building a solid block for the future. Principles rather than rules. There's a saying that says rules are meant to be broken, but the things that endure with you are principles. And when you rely on principles, trust me, they will carry you on to the next level. They are enduring, they are laden with ethics, integrity, and respect for self and for other humans. So those are ties that will bind us. Curiosity. You remember when they used to say curiosity, kills the cat? It doesn't kill the cat anymore. Trust me. You have to make sure that you let them think and you let them soar. Let them be curious. Don't ever say, oh, that's not for you. Why are you asking that question? No question is too small, too large for a child or a youth to ask. They ask it, respond. You don't have the answer, find out. It's important. And we build it also through the teaching that we do. I hesitate to use the word curriculum because, as I asked earlier, it's a means to get some learning going, but it's not an end in itself. Because whatever we're teaching them today, I learned trigonometry, I never used it. And I bet you it's not going to be something that is in my future repertoire. So the most important thing is for us to build that curious mind in our learners and make sure that we give them the power to, I would say, promote and to grow their critical thinking skills. Those are very, very important. Openness to a shift in mindset. You cannot say, okay, this is the way it was done. Oh, no, I'm a millennial. Oh, I'm a Gen Zer. Oh, this is the only way we can do it. No, we have come to this point because some people had a shift in mindset. Mindset is a powerful thing. Preparation for the workforce that is relevant. The curriculum has to be relevant. The students have to see themselves in it. Where do I fit in this thing that I'm learning? Does it apply to my choice of career in the future or not? And if a student came to you and say, you know what, professor, I don't think this is necessary. Although I want to major in medicine, but I don't think taking this will help me. Don't say, okay, drop out of this class. Okay, how can it help you? Ask those very probing questions and get to where that person is going so that you can move along. It's very critical. Organizational culture of inclusiveness is very, very important. You have to have multiple perspectives in any given organization because the perspectives that you bring might be expanded or shrunk depending on what others have put in place to make you and the organization move along. So our youth have to be allowed to please feel connected. A lot of our governmental offices are laden with baby boomers or even before. And then the youth working there already feel that they have lost a place in the workforce. That should not be. Let's have an open mind. Let us talk to our youth. Let us talk to our future leaders. We are not here forever. The sooner we realize that, the better, and start passing on the touch. As some say, the baton, but I prefer to say the touch. Now, this is a call to action. Every worker and every leader will need to prepare and make choices about how to act when faced with new and uncertain situations or circumstances. How we choose to navigate the future of work in the years to come and decades to come will make the difference for us. And my final food for thought is that continuous learning, don't forget that, and understanding of the new generation of learners and workers is very critical. We have to understand them. We are now on generation Z. Where do we go from here? Remember, Z is the last letter of the alphabet. Let us think about this, what I'm saying now, and the implication in the future of our countries and the youth that we have before us. The future for them is very certain. We can't change that. It's going to happen. But remember, our future lies in their hands as well. And we must not forget that. Thank you so much. I'm now open for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. Guys, I was just writing like a moving train.
Oh, so, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't speak too fast.
It was amazing. So much knowledge, shared. For me, you said a lot of profound things. I like how you took us on a journey. You took us on a journey to, and I think the reason is a lot of us were thinking as you were talking. You started from where we are now, what used to be, where we are now, what is happening. You pointed on the who, the how, the who, and the what. How would the workplace be? And I think it's very important that, we actually think about that. Who are the agents? What skills do we need to fully prepare? When you talked about what is happening in the current time. Times are changing. And, and I think one thing, because coincidentally, I'm also like an employer of labor. And when I talk to my team, I tell them that if you notice the attrition rate, the rate at which people just leave the company, especially the millennials, the gap is just, really short. But one of the things that came out, strongly is that aside us putting the burden on the educational system, the industry also has a part to play. So while the education has to do a lot of revamping the curriculum to ensure that the skills that that generation needs to thrive in the workplace, they are being equipped with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also that collaboration with industry to do things like internships, like you said. Coincidentally, the companies already do it. I remember when I was working with an actuarial consulting firm, we always used to take students from Unilag for that internship period, and then they go back to school, and it gets them credit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, looks
But
like
just making it a
back.
common thing where everyone is doing it, and then they have that real life, real work. It's where in companies also need to. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Companies also need to imbibe, like, also get more skilled in these relevant areas. It's not only on the job, like you rightly said. You use the mathematics example, and I think that's so profound, because you find out that back in the days or now, you see a nerd, someone that is into computers, and the person doesn't have communication skills and all. But this is what the companies should set aside, that as part of their training curriculum for every level, there is that list of relevant skills that would allow you stay relevant as the future of work begins to change. There's also the self-awareness. So even we as people, you've really taken us on a thinking path, and it's important that we sit back to actually reflect on what we need to do or what skills we need to gain, to get us there. Another very valid, thing you talked about was the collusion that can be happening between the Gen Zs and the older, generation. And that's really a lot, especially on this side of town, Africa. There is that, there may be all the age, the tradition, the culture thing, but it's important for both generations to understand how they can actually collaborate and learn from each other. I think people need to build a skill for mutual respect. So I can be an 18-year-old or a 23-year-old working in my office can actually be better than me in a particular area. I should be humble enough to know how I can learn from that and collaborate. Then you talked about, the future. You talked about you talked about the barriers. I think those barriers were very, profound. You mentioned, a lot of things. The tracking, whether we like it or not, is something that, still has a lot of work to be done, because unconsciously people are tracked, they're put on a track, based on gender and all, and that's, the world is changing and we need to change that. The absence of the learner's voice, the skilled work. Dr. Fatima, you've just hit the nails on, so many heads. And then the ties that bind, I think that is, profound. Personal empowerment, grassroots economies, health insecurities, principles rather than, rules. Curiosity, when I saw that, I laughed, and I said, I agree, because it no longer kills the cat. And I would say that the other attendees as well, I'm sure because it was a lot of knowledge point. I have one question. I have some questions pouring in already, so I think we'll just go right into it. Because of time, we may not be able to take a lot of questions, but we'll take some, and then we would round off the summit. So I have some people actually gave comments to your first question, where you asked them to reflect and ask themselves questions. I have someone that said, Favor said, I joined the summit because I want to be a better me. Naomi said, I am Naomi, and I'm motivated about practical education and do not want others after me to go through an archaic learning process. The future of work to me is the skills needed to thrive in the workplace as the world evolves. We have Emmanuel Abiodun asking a question. He says, what can you recommend if the area of specialization isn't utilized in your country? So he gave an example. I want to be a virologist, but those I know who studied it either go abroad to practice or end up in the education sector as lecturers and not in the research area where I want to go. What can you recommend if the area of specialization is not utilized in your country? So that's the question.
Well, we do have pioneers, don't we? Who can tell me that a virologist is not needed? Don't we have COVID-19? So if it is not there, it is up to us. That's why I'm talking about the student voice and choice. It's important, it's critical for you to go to your universities and tell them, this is what I want to study. How can you make it happen? We have the capacity, especially in Nigeria, South Africa, and I believe Kenya and some other countries, we have the capacity to introduce these courses. How do we introduce new courses into our countries? So please, Mr. Abiodun, do not despair. If it is not there, that means we need it. Because this is a field that is needed more now, more so than ever. Look at the case of Senegal. They are making a headway. You may not hear a lot about them because it's an African country, but they are making a lot of headway in fighting this virus. We are now apprehensive as a people because we don't know whether whatever vaccines they bring will kill us or heal us. So please, if it is not there, fight for it. Make sure that you get a very, I would say, a guiding coalition of people to help talk to the organizations or the universities and colleges to introduce those courses. And now with technology, it is not impossible to do that. If it's your passion, if it's your dream, and there is the need, I'm sure there is the need, please do not despair. Go about it. But go about it with caution too, so that you're not shut down or doors are not closed. And if you know people who have studied it like abroad, by all means, you can write them so that they can open the eyes of the decision makers and introduce such courses.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have another question.
I'm sorry, I did not want to advise to go abroad because that's another option. But we want to also grow our own, right? But if push comes to shove, that's the option by all means. But anyway, let's try and do it in-house as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. We have another question. The person says, thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. How do you relate interpersonal relationships to professionalism? That's one. And the other part is continuous networking. Continuous networking, is it supposed to be channeled to only one's profession or cut across different fields? So it's like two questions in one, kind of. How do you relate interpersonal relationships to professionalism? And then is continuous networking supposed to be channeled to only one's profession or should it cut across different fields?
Thank you for that question. Actually, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Interpersonal relationship and professionalism go hand in hand. As the boss, somebody comes and chides you, abuses you, uses some, I'll say, favorable words to describe you. It happens a lot in the workforce. Your professionalism will prevent you from throwing that punch back. You will ask some of those probing questions. Why do you feel that way? What could I have done to make it better? Just having those soft power skills would turn that person around. I see that you are, upset about one A or B. How can we, meaning that person has to play a part in it too, make it work? So your interpersonal relationship, goes hand in hand with your professionalism. As a professional, you cannot, I'll say wrestle in the mud with somebody who's ready to do that. Otherwise, guess what? You will throw your professionalism out the door. It really demands a lot of patience, endurance, and simple understanding and empathy, of the human, I would say, interaction. The second one, continuous networking. The best thing is for you to network with all and sundry, right? But the first piece is networking with people from your work because you have company, organizations, and then you have conferences where you have people from all walks of life coming together. You start there, and then from there, you branch out. So I would not, recommend that you only, like minds sometimes do not grow, right? You do not only relate to people who are, in your sphere of work influence. Because if you do, then you will not grow. You want to add value to whatever you do. So it's important to start there and then branch out.
Okay, so that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. We have another question. The question says, as a medical student, what are the benefits of taking political leadership positions to the profession? As a medical student, what are the benefits of taking political leadership positions to the profession?
Okay, you know, in the system now, we have a lot of medical doctors who are political, I would say, political bodies in the government. There is a benefit because you come across all walks of life, people from different areas, and I would say philosophies, backgrounds, and experiences. So as a medical doctor, you do not want to limit yourself by just knowing how to treat, you know, a disease or something. You want to understand the people with whom you work, the people that you're treating. And you also want to be somebody who contributes outside of the field to the human condition. And a lot of medical doctors now in the United States, especially, what we find out is that they're opening their own practices instead of working in the regular clinic, and eventually they get into the purely administrative realms. So yes, you do need that, and no knowledge is wasted. Remember that. And the more you have outside of your field, the better you are and the more well-rounded you are. And the whole purpose of this is to create well-rounded workforce. Okay. So yes, it does matter.
That's fantastic. So I have a question. So now that we have a lot of thinking to do, the changes in the career, you know, path will really change. So a lot of professions as we know it will become irrelevant, you know, as the years go on. A lot of people in the Gen Z will fall into that category that would have professions that are not exactly what our parents know it, you know, to be. How would you advise a teenager to be able to convince his or her, you know, parents to allow them follow that path? Because, you know, they have this particular generation, they're very strong-willed, you know, they know what they want to do, but there can be a barrier from the family, you know, because the parents have not yet accepted, you know, the new normal. How would you advise that they go about it to be able to ensure that they stick to their passion?
You know, they have to be very, I'll say, diplomatic in the way that they go about it. Like, I'll give an example with my daughter. One of my daughters went to a medical school. She did very well her first year. She said, this is not for me. Everybody is talking about how much money I'll make, but that's not why I thought I came into this, because you guys encouraged me. So when she came home and said, hey, by the way, I'm not going to do this anymore, I almost lost my head. My husband said, no, leave her alone. Because we've seen other examples of students who were forced to do those things while they did it, but they took their own path, right? And never used the degree. So what I'll advise our students to do is that they should actually ask the schools to have workshops. Somebody mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, in the past session, that parents, we also have to educate parents, those of us who are in this business of raising the future workforce. Parents have to understand that the students have a mind of their own. You can force a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink. Some of these kids now, the Gen Zers, are very, very astute with regards to what they want to do. So it's only maybe in our African countries that they are really still listening to their parents. Here they are rebelling, and we are going along with what they want to do, because we would rather have them, you know, do what they want to do rather than get mentally ill, right? So the most important thing is for them to either talk through their teachers, their professors, their managers, and say, you know what, my parents want me to do ABC, but this is what my passion lies. And then let them tell the parents the value of what they're going to do. They will be happy, that's the first thing, and they'll have a profession that they like. They will be very, very appreciative of the fact that the parents allow them to do what they want to do instead of resenting them. So yeah, you know, in our African culture, we have other people talk to other people, right? The students can also do that. This youth, they can get the community together. They can get their professors, their teachers together to talk to the parents, to explain to them that this is what, you know, I want to do, and this is why I want to do it. Mom, Dad, you will not regret it, because this is where my passion is. And I want to do something that, you know, will give me a peace of mind in the future, not something that I'm forced into. And I'm not saying it will work all the time, but I think 8 times out of 10, it should work.
Okay, so we have a question from Naomi. Naomi, the host is going to unmute your mic so that you can actually speak and ask Dr. Fatima the question. Yay, okay. Very lucky. Okay. Can Naomi, can you? Okay, Naomi, I'm sure you're on. So can you ask Dr. Fatima your question?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Fatima.
Good
It's been a
evening.
very
Diane.
it's been very insightful. You are very passionate. So I would say I'm having these problems too because I studied law. I'm a lawyer, but then I want to write, and my family doesn't see what is what they know that there is something called writing, but it is not just what they want me to continue doing. So they want me to go back to law, and I'm trying to be diplomatic about it, and they are not heeding to that. What other advice can you give me to be able to convince them that really I want to do this and not do law?
Okay, do you have some examples like of people who have done that and they are successful to the point that your parents will see it? Because I think parents care about us. Let's not get that wrong. They are working from their own frame of mind. So if you can show them examples, they said, sometimes you want to tackle, as a lawyer, you know how to argue your case out. But sometimes, sometimes you want to tackle that by some shining examples.
Okay.
Yeah. So, eventually, or you can tell them, Mom, Dad, I want to put that on hold. Eventually, you're going to go back to it, maybe in one way or the other, because you might need it in your practice or in your profession. But let your parents know that right now, this is your passion, and ABC has done it. This is what happened. I just want to try it. Right now, in my staff, I have a teacher, amazing, happy, who went to law school. His parents wanted him to be a lawyer, so I hated it. So I just did the degree. And once I'm an adult and then I find myself in a different country, I did what I really wanted to do. So it is important to not confront them, just show them some very shining examples and convince them that you'll be happy in this and you will definitely come back to law because you use it. It's not a wasted knowledge. It might be for money down the line, but hey, yeah. So now I hope I helped you and I'll be thinking about you.
Yes. Okay, I'll try not to be confrontational anymore. Thank you
please
so much.
Don't be disrespectful.
Thank you.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. We have Caroline. Caroline has a question.
Oh,
Caroline.
Yeah. All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you, the organizers of this program, and thank you, Dr. Lawson. This is Dr. Caroline from Minnesota. I was able to join, and I just want to thank you for this wonderful presentation. I did not come on time. However, the little pieces that I got were very helpful. So thank you so much, Dr. Lawson.
Thank you, Professor.
And being an educator, I just wanted you to help me a little bit with this struggle that I am having. I've got two daughters. One is in 11th grade at this moment, preparing to go to college.
Yep.
And since I teach with the government, my understanding is that they could go to any of the main skill colleges and universities, and I can get some discounts.
Right.
But my first daughter is insisting that she does not want to do that.
Wow.
Her eyes are out there, other states, Harvard and everywhere. And I did say, if you can get a full ride, I wouldn't mind, you can go anywhere. But if I have to be responsible to sign another student loans for you, I have a huge one sitting on my neck that I will not be able to do that. So my question is this, I just wanted you to, help me out here. Am I being too harsh, too protective, or what am I doing? What should I do? I am pretty confused here.
You know what? I have been in your shoes with 4 children. To be honest with you, the first 2 got full ride scholarships. And yes, if they go to any of the mid-skill schools, the tuition is significantly reduced or even free, depending on what it is. And I see your point, Mom. It's important. But you know what? My 4th daughter, she got scholarship. I don't want to go there. I want to break tradition. The sisters went there. And then she went to another one. I signed the form. I said, you are on your own. This is what I can afford. And anything else is on you. And now she's regretting and really apologizing because she is stuck with some of the student loans. So you want to be practical. Break it down to her and say, hey, but because you do not want her to go to a school that she does not, she will not apply herself. That's the thing with our youth these days. You know, if you insist too much, too hard, yeah, she will go. But then will she put her all in it? So just tell her what the options are. You can draw, you know, what I usually do, I put the pros and the cons. And I show them, if the pros outweigh the cons, then we work with it. If the cons outweigh the pros, then you know that you're on your own. Although we don't totally, you know, of course, close our eyes, but we tell them we cannot afford, like I told her, whatever the scholarship covers, that's what we will pay out of pocket, but the rest is on you. And now she's seeing it. So I don't know whether it's a good thing to do, because she insisted and she went to the school. And by the way, she's not using the degree, just so that you know. Oh yeah, she's not using it. While she was at this school, she was in the tech, she worked in the help desk, she got some little certificates, although the bachelor's came in handy because she is a team lead now, but she's using it. So yeah, they don't see it, but we have to go with them. Draw the line, tell them the pros and the cons, what you can do and what you cannot do, and stay consistent. That's one thing with us parents. You know, sometimes we're like, oh, okay, you're my baby and all that. But we have to be very, also, we have to understand their point.
Okay.
You want to open our horizons and go somewhere else, let it be. But then talk about the financial, because right now it seems like the financial is the big deal. She wants to go to school. Yay, let's applaud that. But then let her know, you know, what the financial ramifications are.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr.
Yeah,
Lawson.
That's
very helpful.
Thank you.
Welcome. Fantastic. So, guys, we're going to take one more question, and then we would be wrapping up the summit. So, one more question from, we have Favor. Favor, shoot. Shoot with your question. Favor, we're waiting for you. Okay, fantastic. Oh. Favor, you have to unmute your mic. Okay, unmuted now. Can you hear us, Favor?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Fatima. I'm saying good evening because I'm talking from Nigeria.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Okay, so I had my first degree in English education, and over the years my career parted towards special needs education. So I do a lot with children now living with disabilities. But my question is, just during this lockdown, I found out that I now have passion for sign language. And like I started like a month ago. It's not been easy. My fingers hurting and everything. And the question I want to ask is, how do I marry all of this together? Because I seem to be confused. You know, having that first degree, I've not really worked for that long, and my career has parted towards this, and now sign language is coming in. So, with your experience with someone that has had so many reading, has to do so many things, studying different languages and all of that, how can I marry all of this together? And also, lastly, the financial implication, because right now I had this opportunity to do this sign language with a particular body who they are doing this for the first 2 months free though, but subsequently I need to enroll for something more serious and better. And so I just want you to give me a kind of talk, because I really want to find my feet, and so that I can be useful to my generation, especially those that are different. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ms. Favor. What you said is really something that we see a lot in the field of education. You started with English, education, which is great. I know that in Nigeria, you don't need a license to do that. Here you do, which makes it even, more, I would say, skilled based. So what I would advise is that, I know you can handle it. Guess what? Because you've already started the sign language learning, so keep it up. because, you know, in special education, we have different branches, and sign language is an area that is unexplored, especially by people, well, I want to say people of color, but us Africans. And special ed is another trend. When you look at the trend of professions, that's another trend that is growing and is here to stay, because the people that we've neglected in the past are going to be taking care of their needs, you know, in future. So if you can do it, I know the financial implications might be a little bit harder, but it's going to pay off. Just have that resilience and then have the assurance. Just think about that light at the end of the tunnel. Don't think about all the, you know, inconveniences that you're facing right now. You already have the tools. You are already in special education and you are dealing with those students. And I'm sure some of your students might be students who are deaf and hard of hearing. So do what you need to do to keep it up. You can do it. Don't doubt yourself. Sometimes, you know, they say nothing is bad or good or impossible. Only thinking makes it so. So do not think that it is hard. You can do it. I know, I don't know whether we have student loans back home, but if the financial pieces are so overwhelming, you know, then maybe you should ask your employers to help and then sign a contract to say, okay, I'll give you 2-3 years of my life if, you know, I went through this training. It is really needed, and I'm glad that you're actually even attempting it now. Just stay the course. Do not give up. At first, it's hard. Your fingers are going to hurt. That's why here, when you look at sign language interpreters, they only do it for like 10 minutes and then, 15 minutes and somebody takes over. It is difficult, but I don't know whether at home they do it that way. But anyway, if you continue to do it in this part, it's going to get easier and easier. Your hands will be malleable and they will be very, very much, you know, dexterous to the point that you do not feel it at all. And again, if you're already working with the school, I see no reason why they should not give you some financial support, because this is an unexplored field. It's not very common. Even here, it is new. Talk about back home in Africa. So I'm glad that you're in that path, Ms. Favor. Please keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
And if you ever come across the border, there are tons of organizations that are looking to, because we want everything to be culturally relevant as well, looking for people of color to be sign language interpreters, because there's a way that you do it and the communication pieces that you can bring into, you know, the field that others might not have. So, you know, that's another area that I think that if anybody wants to do, I will really, really, really encourage them not to give up on that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. That's just been it's been a wisdom pouring, powerful session. Because of time, we're going to try to wrap up the summit, but on behalf of every one of us here, and, you know, stay from going, I'm going to call up Busola in a minute to round off. I want to say thank you so much, ma'am. It's been such an honor. Everything you said, you know, it's just food for thought, you know, for every one of us. I don't know if we'll be able to get your slides. Busola, is it?
You recorded it, right?
Yeah, but
I could.
Oh, you know, just to keep in the future, but it's really been, you know, an honor, and everything you've said is really resonated with every one of us. To round off and, you know, give the proper thanks, I'll be bringing up the founder of Stirring for Greatness Foundation,